Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Artful Leadership Interview Series. I'm Rachelle Archer, Expressive Arts Coach and Consultant. And today I'm excited to be talking to a local musician from San Diego by the name of Veronica May. Hi, Veronica.
Hello.
Welcome to the Artful Leadership Interview Series.
Thank you.
Voila.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah. Will you tell us a little bit about who you are and, what you're up to right now that you're excited about?
Here we go.
Okay.
A lot of it is about music. So I'm a musician. I've been in town musician here for 13 years, I think. Yeah, 13 years in San Diego, and was a music therapist for 11 of those years, mainly working with special needs, but working in over 20 populations, just kind of all over the place with my internship, just kind of a taste of everything. Mental health advocate, soon to be author, wrote a book about having bipolar 1 and releasing a big set of 20 songs at the end of the year. So those, just a lot of creative work and trying to connect with others through creative work, especially music. That's me in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's a big nutshell.
It's a very big, it's like a walnut, like a human-sized walnut shell.
Exactly. A lot of great little things going on in there.
Yes.
So we met because you found out about Monarch through the girls' rock and roll camp, right?
Yep.
And you're also doing some volunteer work at Monarch when you can.
Yes.
Yes. And so I was wondering if you want to talk about those experiences a little bit, like what it was like for you to work with those youth.
Yeah. So it's interesting having the scope of looking through the lens of somebody who was a music therapist for so long. And I'm not practicing anymore, so I wouldn't call it that. But I definitely, the main focus of rock camp is to achieve, this is the definition of music therapy, to achieve non-music goals through music.
Right.
So, and that's always the lens I'm looking through is what is the goal and how can I achieve it through music? And so, for example, at rock camp, it isn't a rock camp to teach you electric guitar and, you're not going to be like knowing all the instrument by the end of the week. Right. The whole point is to get you behind an instrument, do something vulnerable and scary, to push through that, to overcome and to empower. So I kind of look at the time I have at Monarch in the same way. We did a lot of songwriting stuff. And it's a really safe way to talk about hard things. And so, and I do that at the school I work at too. I work at a foster school, and it's very hard to be like, what was your experience? But much easier to be like, all right, so in the verse you talked about XYZ, how did that feel? We can like add that in the chorus. And it's in this context of I'm writing a song, not I'm really sharing something hard right now. And then the final product being sung back to you and kind of a form of validation. So anytime I'm interacting with somebody through music, unless it's just music instruction solely, I'm thinking about that. Like, what does this person need and how can I contribute musically? So, and that's kind of what I do at Monarch. We are learning chords and things like that. But I always make an opportunity for those that maybe don't have as much of a voice in the class and they can really hold it down on the guitar. They'll plug in their guitar. So they're the how can I meet this person through my service in a safe way?
Yeah, and how can I, and I'm an expressive arts therapist, so that's my, so, we have some similar ways of working in that regard. And how can we create an environment where, yes, you want to create a beautiful product together, right? You want to create some beautiful experience of the arts or product of the arts, and you have these goals of what you want to achieve for that person, whether that's expression or safety or whatever it is. Or, empowerment, self-esteem, and, connection, whatever those things are. So, yeah. So you've been at San Pasquale for a long time. What is your role there?
So it's kind of shifted through the years. When I started out, I was a drum, piano, guitar, vocal teacher. And it was like, these are chords. This is how you play them. And then I realized these kids are in crisis, and maybe learning the scale is not going to be the top of their priority list. Right. So I started really particularly using piano, very easy ways to improv, like play just the black keys and it sounds great. And I play the left hand. And then I took it a step further and started just songwriting, which was a great choice. And like we have talent shows and things like that. We have another instructor, and I told my boss a while ago, these kids sometimes don't do any music when they come in with me. They have to unload their story sometimes, and they just need to talk sometimes. So I started using that, and I'd be like, what's on your mind? Can I write it down? Writing down phrases, start rhyming it, and by the end of the class, playing it for them. And we're bringing in a professional producer next month to record all the songs professionally. So I just realized what was more important. And it is great to have that musical skill, and those that want to learn notes, we do that stuff too. But I just see that there's a different need there.
So how is that different for you from your role as music therapist? I'm kind of curious, like what are the distinctions that you're making as, seeing yourself as retired as a music therapist and continuing to work with kids in these kind of life-changing ways through music?
I can't separate the two anymore.
I
when I am working with specific populations of people, I mean, even if it's not somebody in need, we're all in need in some way. Like when I have jams over here sometimes, and I bring women who maybe haven't been playing for that long. So the jam is centered around just giving them something simple and being a part of a community they want to be a part of. So it's like, I can't shut off that therapy side, even though I'm not certified anymore and I don't call it that. I'm like, I have to meet this goal. I want to help. So yeah, it's hard to separate those. And because I'm just looking through that lens for so many years, you're kind of taught, and then you shift your mind into how can we really put some more intention behind this.
So you have a project you're working on, you're releasing a book, and you have and I think my first interaction with you was seeing you speak at an event for women through the County Office of Education. It was like a women's event, and you were sharing your story and you were playing your music. And I had heard of you before, but I hadn't had a chance to see you. And when you shared your story and your songs, I just started bawling. And I sat there at the ballroom table and just cried and cried. And my coworkers were like, "Are you okay?" And and there was just so many connecting points. But your story is really powerful, and so I'd love to hear a little bit about that and your book and where you're going with yourself as a mental health advocate.
So having bipolar 1 since I was diagnosed 11 years ago. So when I was 25, and it happened, it was just a switch just flipped. And I experienced psychosis. I've had 3 major manic episodes. The distinction between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2 is with bipolar 1, there has to be hospitalization and psychosis. That includes paranoia, mild hallucinations, and delusions. And so for me, the way it works, I think there's this misconception that people that are bipolar 1, it's always like, woo, but it's usually impacts and then back to regular life type of thing. So I started kind of sharing my story with just friends, and some of the things I've experienced are pretty off the wall. Thinking I'm Jesus is the big one, and that's common for people with bipolar 1 is having delusions of grandeur. And so what ends up happening is I create a whole world, this religious world where, for example, my best friend I always think is John the Baptist, because John the Baptist is one of the closest to Jesus.
Yeah.
And so I just explore that with people. And the whole book concept is certain events where I'm in psychosis through the eyes of my friend, through my eyes, and through the eyes of my mental health team. And so I'll interview all people that were part of this situation and see their experience of it. And the book is called The Book of Bipolar According to Veronica. And it just kind of highlights a lot of different things. And I actually also interviewed another person with bipolar 1. And that was really eye-opening for me, to see how similar our stories are and to see the very specific things that we both believe. It was a really crazy journey, and I'm still on it. I've been writing it for 7 years, and I set the book down, and 9 days later I had a manic episode. And I actually opened the book back up the night of my break, and I wrote just some very disconnected thoughts, and I kept them in the book. And I'm in the last round of edits, I hope, because to tell that story is one thing, and to comb over it time and time again for edits is quite another. You kind of in some ways get disconnected from your story, and in others you kind of get planted back in that situation from 10 years ago, so it's been a journey, but the main focus is to get this book self-published and to go on a music book tour, where I'm doing some music venues, but I'm also at schools talking, which I enjoy doing, on various topics like resilience and acceptance and understanding through the scope of living with a mental illness like this.
Wow. So do you have like a date you're shooting for when you want to get this thing out?
I'd like to get it out by the end of summer, which is very ambitious. I can do it.
Yeah.
I just got back, actually, my round of edits 2 days ago. I have 2 beta readers, so now I'm editing both through the whole book. And then formatting and all those things. So we're in the final countdown. There's some pretty big structural edits that I have to do. So it's kind of like writing a really big song. Yeah. Like the structure, you're like, okay, I see how this has to go here and how to make it flow. And yeah, it's been, I think everybody should write their story, whether they publish it or not. It's really opened my eyes to myself in a lot of different ways.
Yeah. Well, and then to involve the perspectives of other people that were experiencing you, I would imagine that's even more enlightening, just to have that outside perspective of who you were in those moments and how that impacted them, and that whole kind of community view of your journey through this.
Yeah. And it was, there were some hard moments.
Yeah, I'm sure.
In my reality of something, a friend would be like, that's not what happened. That's not how that happened. And I'm like, but I thought that's how it happened. That's what happened in my mind.
Right.
So that was interesting to kind of go through that, and to see the experience of the other person, and that mental illness definitely doesn't just affect the person with mental illness.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the best thing that's ever happened in my life, though, which maybe sounds odd. But I would not change having bipolar 1.
Wow. So what's the gift in it for you?
I mean, you and I both know that you get to a certain age and it's like, you can see how trials are important. Yeah. And you see that the bigger trials you have, I always say the bigger the loss, the bigger the gain. It's just like these really traumatic events. My father just passed, and seeing through the scope of grief and understanding that the reason you grieve is because you loved, and this whole cycle of life, and and I'm an advocate. I write about it. I have a book about it. I get to help other people. I had a girl who she brought a friend into lessons, and she was like, "Oh, you're so bipolar." And I was like, "I have bipolar." And that's not the first time that's happened in lessons. And they're like kind of surprised. And the next lesson she came in and asked me about it. And I started explaining what delusions were. And she realized that she had had thoughts that were out of the ordinary. And she ended up getting diagnosed. And so I feel like it's so important to talk about these things.
Yeah.
Like the importance of medication, and that you're not weak if you take it. And, you know, so yeah, I feel like my creativity is different because of it. My compassion has gotten so much bigger. And I have that adversity to thank for it.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So, you know, we started off with talking about how music can really serve to meet needs and achieve goals. How has music played a role in your journey with bipolar?
It's been crucial. And it's interesting that, so usually I'll write a whole slew of songs like in mania and just dealing with it, or in depression. It's been my way to process it.
Yeah.
And when I write songs, I used to write like for the rhyme. So if it was like da 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 hope, I'd be like, what rhymes with hope? Cope. And I'd go through the rhymes.
Nope.
And then I got to this point where it's like, what am I trying to say?
Yeah.
Not what am I trying to fit?
Right.
And so it's really important for me in those moments. I get a lot of clarity when I'm like, didn't know that was on my mind. And I wrote a song called Dead Wooden Box. It's about my guitar and the importance of it. And when I was in my first manic episode, I was in the ICU. So they weren't allowed to like bring instruments in. And I was pretty catatonic. And it was partially because I had to be on some pretty heavy medications just to bring me back down.
Right.
But they were able to get a guitar in to the unit for me. And at this point I hadn't cried. I was just plastered face, and they gave me the guitar and I just strummed it once, and it was just like all the emotion was able to come out of me. So I wish everybody would maybe not learn an instrument, but write poetry or paint or dance or do something to express themselves, because that's how we get it out. I don't know how people get it out otherwise.
Right. Yeah, it's so powerful. I was curious if there was anything you wanted to play for us.
Yes, and there are guitars behind me, so that is.
I'm looking at them going, ooh.
Which guitar? What song would I want to? I wish I had my capo, because I can play the song I was talking about. Let me see here. I'll play a song that kind of is about living with bipolar. So a quick education to like bipolar 2 generally runs low, which I think would be very difficult. And it's kind of in this span. So it's like people's emotions, bipolar 2 emotions, bipolar 1 emotions. They just kind of get more extreme as you go. And in general. And for me, there's, like I said, a lot of religious themes. And so I wrote a song called Heaven and Hell, just about those polar opposites. So I'll play that one. Okay. Can you hear this okay? Sounds good? It's not cracking out? Okay, here we go. Cracking out. I know why the wind blows through the trees. It's a combination of all our good energy floating around. 'cause I've been to heaven and back. Yes, I have. There's a blessing in burden. There's some healing and hurting inside this beautiful mind of mine. Inside this beautiful mind. I know our babies cry. I know why people die. 'Cause I've been to hell and back. Oh, I've been to hell and back. Yes, I have. It's a blessing and burden. There's some healing and hurting inside this terrifying mind of mine. Inside this terrifying terrifying, beautiful mind. There it is.
Yay!
A song.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you as
Yeah.
well.
It's a beautiful capture of that tension.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. So when did you first know music was your thing? Like how did that happen?
Oh man, music has always been in my life. Since I can remember. My mom was in the Colorado Symphony. She was the pianist when she was younger, and my parents were in a band together when they were younger, and so it's always been around. I started piano at 3, started percussion in 5th grade through college, and then at 17 is when I played guitar, which is the one I really fell in love with. I think I fall in love with all of them in different parts of my life. If I need to get something out, I'm like, give me drumsticks.
Yeah.
But I think my music teacher in high school really fostered that, Miss Marino. She just kept trying to give me opportunities. Teachers, the importance of a good teacher.
Yeah.
When I went to college, my parents said, do whatever you want. Do not get a music degree. I was like, that's all I want to do. And so it was hard. I changed my major 5 times, and I was really struggling. And my stepdad was like, okay, your mom and I talked. We heard about this thing called music therapy. So that's when I started shifting. It wasn't until like end of my sophomore year, beginning in junior year, that I really started kicking that into gear. And once I finally got into that, I was like, wow, it's amazing how fear can drive you away from the thing that's most important. You know, the fear of not making enough money or whatever fears are around it. Yeah. But once that was kind of cut away, it all just started unfolding,
Mm-hmm.
as it does when you're on the right track.
Yeah. Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. Very cool. So, um, so you've kind of like made this shift from having this distinguishing between this is my work and this is my art. It's like it's all kind of happening at the same time, like
Yeah.
this
Yes.
transformational music in service of healing and helping. Who is your tribe? Like, who are the people that are, on this journey with you?
So many people. I have a lot of music therapy friends. There are a lot of music therapists in this town.
Uh-huh.
I have a very big tribe, and I feel like I attract people who have those same goals in mind. I want to say I'm lucky, and I am lucky. I'm fortunate. I also cultivated this
Yeah.
community.
Yeah.
And it's taken a long time. I was actually on a plane ride. I hate planes.
Mm-hmm.
So I do everything I can to distract myself. And I had to fly on Thanksgiving this year. So I wrote down all the people I was thankful for in my community.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote down people that I could call, or they could call me, and we would be there.
Yeah.
And off the top of my head, I wrote 75 people down. And it's a massive community, and I had to build it because out of necessity, for needing support sometimes, and allowing people to be service to me so that, we can continue that cycle.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's a big community, and we're lucky at Rock and Roll Camp because there are so many music therapists that volunteer.
Mm-hmm.
And every volunteer is important.
Yeah.
There is a specific role that I feel like we play there, or for those that are certified now, that there's a specific role that they play, that maybe, as therapists, you look at things different and you can reach in different ways, just through that lens.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, to answer that question, 1 million people.
1 million people are in your tribe.
Yes.
Is there anyone in particular, could be an artist, could be someone could be an author, or someone whose work really inspires you?
Oh my gosh.
Or that's maybe like,
wow.
I'm sure you have a bazillion, but is there something that's like really live for you right now?
For some reason, when you said that, I'll just say who the first person was that came to my mind.
Okay.
Charisse Coulter is her name.
Okay. She's
an author, and she's all about tearing down the patriarchy through her words, and educating men and women and anybody. Just educating through her words. I've read her books, and she's really held my hand through this process. And I appreciate that very much. I stopped writing because I was like, I don't know how to self-publish. I'm too scared. Just set it down. And when I started getting to know her more, she was like, you can do this. I'll help you through it. So she definitely inspires me. She's also makes music videos, and she does this thing called Awkward Conversations, where she has real conversations about things people don't want to talk about. So she's just always trying to find ways to dig in deeper. And so, yeah, for some reason, that one came. Charisse Coulter.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll have to check her out. I want to compile kind of a resource list for artists of everybody I'm talking to has like different authors or musicians or artists that they're super inspired by. I think it'd be fun to kind of have a little resource so people could, just see all the cool little goodies that are out there that we may have missed.
Ooh, I'll send you some stuff. I'll send you people.
Yay. And I was wondering if I'm doing a little bit of a kind of a pass it on process with this interview series, and a lot of people that I've interviewed have shouted out other people that are in our community that they would love to see be interviewed. So I was just kind of curious if you have anybody in mind that would be great to add to our Artful Leadership community, and whose work we could put out there.
Do you know Emma Bird?
I do.
I love Emma Bird. Emma Bird would be a great one. Lindsay White would be a great one.
I don't know Lindsay.
Lindsay and I were in a duo for 6 years called the Lovebirds. And she writes songs for change, and she is not afraid to say what needs to be said. And she's a great songwriter. Her lyrics, she's very lyric driven, and just brave. And she talks about, she deals with like panic attacks and anxiety. So she talks about that. Mm-hmm. She talks about grieving. She lost her mom to cancer several years ago. And so, yeah, I think there are so many bold women. I mean, bold people, but there's something about seeing a bold woman. I'm like, oh my gosh, we need to see more of that because it's there. Yeah. You just barely have to go, oh, look at all these bold women.
Yeah, totally.
So I would say those would be a couple. Okay. But I can send you an extensive list of all that. Natalie McDonald's another one.
Okay.
She's not an artist. She has an artist collective called Together, and she pretty much gets all these powerful women in one room, and she just has them talk to each other. There's videographers, there's painters, all sorts, and then we all kind of collaborate in those environments. So there's so many great things happening in the world.
I want to go to that. That sounds amazing.
I'll let you know when the next one is.
Yes. Yeah, and one of the things that I'm wanting to do too is create events where people who are leading and who are artists can come together. And like, I feel like I haven't been in a community where I can connect with other artists who are kind of my tribe in a sense, who are doing similar work. And also, I think that it would be really fascinating to create art about the work that we do. And, to share our stories of what it's like to serve youth who are really in challenging situations. We do so much to give them voice, but we have all these experiences of like walking beside them and being a part of this, and the responsibility that we have for social justice and for advocacy and all that stuff. And I'm like, I want to create stuff, but I also want to just see who else is doing that and who can I join in that work. So I have a little event coming up where I'm like, who wants to just come and hang out with me and we'll talk about this.
I want to have another one because I'm out of town and I really want to come to this event.
Okay.
I hope you have more.
I will. Yeah, I definitely will. So yay, I'm glad that you're excited. So as we kind of bring our conversation to a close, is there anything else you would really like to share with people right now that you want people to know?
That I want people to know. Is there anything else I want to share? I use Suavecito in my hair.
For those of you that were wondering,
that's what came out. That's what came out of my mouth.
It smells really good too.
And that's what I chose to share. Pomade. Let's just wrap it up with pomade.
Yeah, so if people want to find out about your book, if they want to find out about your music, your shows, what you're doing at San Pasquale, how can they support that? Like, how do people get a hold of you?
Veronica.com.
Okay.
And there's a contact page there, or you can contact me at music@veronicamay.com.
Okay. And then you're also on Instagram or those kind of places, all that. Good stuff.
Veronica May Music is my Instagram.
Okay.
I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay. And is there anything in particular that you would like support with from the general community or from folks that might be looking at this, connecting with you?
Any support?
Yeah. Just like at San Pasquale, do you guys need money? Do you need donations? Do you need volunteers?
Oh man, volunteers would be great, but donations I think are even greater in some ways because we need new musical instruments and things like that. That would be huge. I think, or even donating time or money to NAMI, National Alliance for Mental Illness. They really need a lot of love too. Those two things would be great.
Okay. So
yeah.
Donations, money, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Programming. Are you guys funded through like a nonprofit organization or through the county office? How does that
Through
work?
the county office. For me though, we have to get grants. For
Okay.
anything I do, we have to get a grant.
Okay.
And there is some money for instruments, but we've had the same drum set for 8 years and it's fallen apart. So there are certain things we are limited to. I would really like to get more hand drums
Uh-huh.
and do drum circles, teaching basic African rhythms and things like that. I feel like that's something we have, like 2 congas and some like little hand drums. But I was able to bring some in years ago, and we had like 10 people in the group, and there's something about facing each other and interacting in that way and making music that's really intimate.
Yeah.
So that would be great if we could do that again.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll put that word out there.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for joining me and sharing your story and your passion and your humor and your pomade tips.
I don't know what that was. Like sound effects.
Yes, yes. I look forward to seeing you in the community soon and checking in at Monarch. And,
All right.
All right.